Hello friends, and welcome back to the cabin. I'm on my way to pick up Jennifer and Steven's bathtub. I'm not sure what kind of tub it is, what she picked out, what color, but I'm on my way to pick it up. We'll get that thing back out there so that we can get it installed. Alright friends, I made it in and out of the hardware safely with everything that was going on, but it looks like that she got a freestanding acrylic tub, and then she got a couple of metal shelves that I'm going to have to put up in the closet. So she even ordered Dad a pizza, and I had to make an extra stop to be able to pick it up. But I'll tell you what, I've already had one piece before I went in the hardware, and it's tasty. So I'll see you back at the cabin, and we'll get this thing unloaded. Alright friends, there's the shelving that she ordered. I'll have to cut that off to go inside the closet, but then she'll have a shelf that goes around her closet three ways. And then there's her tub. Well, the shelves are on the porch now, along with the bathtub. So now Stephen and I, we have a couple of more projects to work on. And then there's the wonderful pizza that she had made for me with light cheese and 3 meat topping. Tell you what friends, I just can't hardly do melted cheese, because to me, now I can eat it if it's cold, like extra sharp cheddar, but don't heat it up, don't melt it, because to me it becomes alien and the taste is, can't handle it. Well, I'll tell you, we had a surprise shift in our weather pattern where it's just a little bit on the cool side outside. So I'm heading up here to feed the chickens. Jennifer brought up a couple of bags last night, so we're going to get rid of that. Then we're going to go down here and talk some more about those ancient stones. I tell you what friends, it still amazes me how people could actually make a tool like this, where they would just take a piece of plain stone or rock, they would take another maybe with a different shape, and they would begin to whittle out a design that they would be able to put a handle to and be able to wield that tool for whatever reason that they were making it. You know, whether it was to chop with, whether it was to try to crush things or hammer things in, would be evidence of a flat backside right there, and then a sharper side right here. Of course, there's a chip or two taken out of that small chip where, you know, it had been used, right? But, you know, I did some research from the last time that I did the video on these, and these actually date back to what they call an archaic period, which is BC. And so these tools right here, these stones, could be as old as anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 years old, because man was actually making metal tools even 2,000 years ago, because they had swords and spears and things like that. So these predate that. Now I'm not saying that they still didn't have these, because this would be a good weapon choice, right? Because you can actually cut with this, and you can actually hammer with this end right here. So, you know, having something like this, kind of like bushcraft, you know, on the go, make a weapon or a tool that you needed for whatever project that you had in mind. But, you know, there is a song called If the Rocks Could Talk, which is a good Christian song. And I'll tell you what, something like this, when you stop and you think about it, and as old as something like this could be, you know, my son said, "Dad, how do you know that the Indians didn't make it?" Well, I don't know, you know, but I would say that it was probably many, many, many hundreds of years ago that they did this, because just several hundred years ago a lot of them were using metal. So these predate that by quite a bit. But just stop and think, you know, between 2,000 to 5,000 years is when you find pictures of these right here, and this could have been left by somebody that had been here and just now been found. You know, got another one just like it, only larger in size, right? Probably for a different type of a project. Just like I have a sledgehammer for doing things, and then I have a smaller hammer for doing other things, right? So I think axes were the same way. Of course, this other one right here is totally a different type of a style, but still, you know, used much in the same manner. But now back to what I was going to say. Let me say this. If rocks could talk, what would they say? So if this rock could tell us something, it might be able to tell us something from as old as it is, maybe from when Noah was here, or maybe even when Christ was here. Think about that, the fall of the Roman Empire, or Genghis Khan, you know, in his era. They could tell us things about the Industrial Revolution, World War I, World War II, you know. If rocks could talk, you know, back when these were made, just think about the things that could have been going on, because we don't really know how old they are, but we do know that they date back to that archaic, I guess what they call archaic period. But they are fascinating when you stop and think about not only the design and what they were used for, and imagining them using this tool, just like you might imagine me using my tools from week to week during the videos. When you stop and think about the age that they are and the time period back then, what was going on, to sit here and tell us things about the fall of the Roman Empire, or, you know, when Jesus walked the earth, they could tell us stories about that. You know, that is just so fascinating and so interesting. And like I said, they may have just been discovered. Maybe the Indians didn't leave them here. Maybe those people from way back then actually left them somewhere, and because, you know, like I said, Jennifer's grandfather used to like to trade and buy and hunt and things like that for relics like this, so we don't really know where they came from. We just know when they date to. And it's quite interesting, like I say, when you stop and think about that time period, what could have been going on when that tool was made. What about the person that made it? Was he a warrior? Was he fashioning a tool for war or for protection, self-protection for him and his family? Or was he just a farmer? You know, did he needed a tool to, you know, cut down trees and clear land and to be able to farm with? You know, was he a forester? You know, did he need to chop and split wood? Who knows what it was used for, but when you stop and think about the person who was making this, you know, why was he making it? You know, what was his purpose in doing so? So we do know that they had tools like this, you know, fashioned for self-defense, right? Like a tomahawk. Of course, you know, this, like I said, is probably an axe of some sort, but this one is small enough compared to this one that this one could be used as a tomahawk, you know. But my point is, the person who was making it, what was he making it for? When you stop and you think about all of those things, you know, it's just fascinating when you hold something like this and you look at it, and your mind begins to wander and you think about all of those things. You know, where did it come from? How old is it? What did they use it for? Why was he making it? You know, things like that come to my mind. So that's why I still find tools like that very, very fascinating. Well, friends, I think that the boards are just about dry, all except this end right here is just a little bit on the damp side right here, but these boards do have to get cut off. So I think that they're dry enough now that I can go ahead and apply that wood protectant on here. Then we can start cutting these up in the next video and getting those installed. I'll tell you what, I was really glad and proud that I was able to get that many boards out of that one log that was left, because I didn't want to have to ruin any of my 12-foot material and have, you know, like 4 foot of cut off waste. I could use it for shelving, but I've also been saving a lot of shelving material, so I just don't need to add to that, right? So I generally try to cut, you know, what I'm going to use, knowing, of course, you know, with sawmill lumber you got to square them off and to use them, but you don't want to oversize your material where you've just got a whole lot of cut off and waste that you can't really use. So yeah, really glad that we've got 32 boards left. It's going to take 30 if I figure it right, and then we'll have 2 left over that we can make mistakes on. You know, friends, I just wanted to tell you that that wood protectant that I'm using on the siding is what I used on this material right here. Now, if you remember, these are hickory posts that I had a piece of a log left over, and I cut these out to use them as posts, but the rest of this material is pine. Now, some of it was a little on the resinous side, and then the other was a different type of a pine. But that wood protectant does a really good job, because when it rains, it will pool up out here and just stand. And I can come out here and I can sweep it off. It does a really good job while leaving the wood looking somewhat natural, even though it's got a slight yellow hue or tint to it. But as far as it doing its job, when it rains, you know, like I say, it's doing a great job. So I think maybe I'll let it go this year, but maybe next year I can bring the roller out here and do the bridge real quick. And I'll probably have to brush the handrails, but I just want to report to you that that stuff from Cabot, even though you see it up there on the building, and as far as siding goes, you really don't notice what elements will do to material if they're not vertical. So if they're horizontal, just like that other bridge, it rotted because I never treated it, right? But this bridge right here has been treated, and you can tell it when it rains. So just wanted to let you all know that that Cabot wood protectant, and you can get it in different colors. I generally buy the natural, but it does a really good job. Well, friends, I'm going to pick up my rocks and head into the cabin, but I just wanted to share with you some information that I had found out when we sent the last video out. I had asked you all, you know, about comments and how old you thought they might be. Never even dawned on me that they could be that old, actually, until I started doing some digging and research on my own, and found out that, you know, they could be anywhere between 2,000 to 5,000 years old. Some say even more than that, but I don't believe we've been here that long. But anyway, I thought it was quite interesting, and I wanted to share it with you. Friends, thanks so much for stopping by. We certainly do appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you back up here at the cabin again next time.